first, I guess a bit of a disclaimer, I'm not a trainer or a guru or an expert. I'm just an average Joe that's invested in property, made quite a few mistakes over the years. But generally speaking, I've still come out all right the other side. And luckily, I've got a partner that's slightly more intelligent than me, Ingrid, who sits next to me. So she's my the clever partner in the room. So Chris asked me to do a little bit of a background and a bit of an overview in terms of who we are and a bit of our property journey, and also what's going on in our world at the moment with the lockdown. So that's pretty much the start point. A bit of background, and again, everyone jump in on questions if they want to ask questions. Just jump straight in and ask. So background-wise, we became landlords in 2004 just because I didn't want to put the money into my pension and top it up, and decided to buy a couple of properties in Hatfield, and then forgot about them, fell asleep on them, and then really just decided, that might be a nest egg for the future. Again, we bought 3 properties back then, had no real strategy or idea about investment in property. Obviously, one of them became a bit of a mistake, a property we bought in Luton, so we offloaded that really quickly. A lot of people would say, if you were a guru or a teacher or somebody that knew what they were talking about, you'd say, we kind of made a lot of mistakes and we failed our way to success. But the reality isn't that. We just made it pretty much every mistake in the book when it came to property investment very early on. And the things that we're finding out, well, I guess in recent years, are things that we know about are things that they say you shouldn't do, which are kind of bad to do. And one is buy off plan. So we did that. Buy a property in Spain. So we did that. And then buy before the 2008 crash. So we did that. And then I guess other people say concentrate your area. Don't buy in different countries. So we did that. And so I guess, if you look back at our past, you might say we made a right mess of things. But I think one thing in this game, it's easy to be lucky. And I guess property mistakes are quite forgiving over time. And obviously most people know this, and primarily around the fact that capital growth just really solves a lot of the mistakes that we made. So I guess that's where we were very early on in our investment plans. And then beyond that, it was 10 years later, we'd done nothing. It was decision time on what to do. And we'd had a bit of capital growth, bought 2 properties in Hertfordshire, so you get a bit of capital growth. And we could have cashed in, paid some or maybe all our mortgage off at the time. Just a bit of a fork in the road, really. At that point we said, let's find out what we should do. And first we decided to get educated and read a few books. And so I kind of downloaded most of the Audible stuff and bought a lot of paperbacks, read most of the Rob Dix books, which are Beyond Bricks, Property Investment, How to Be a Landlord. Also kind of the progressive guys. Every book that was out there I bought and read, and started to realise that people were making a living out of this stuff, and thought, well, maybe there is something in this, and maybe I shouldn't sell those properties. Also, I got kind of educated for free. Didn't spend hardly any money on the training side. Just downloaded books, and there's a lot of free stuff. YouTube is my friend in terms of property development and training, and even the bad trainers that end up on the news and be panorama dramas and documentaries about bad investors. There's still something from them to learn. And then also I met like-minded people, Chris and Lisa. Obviously they've got the Alban Property Network, and there are other networks out there which we've attended. Again, I've never spoke at any, but there's a lot to learn, and either for the price of a beer or a 10 quid subscription, there's quite a lot of training out there or networking that you can do. We then decided to look at some actual spend training, and I did spend some money on training because I could afford to, but I would just put a caveat and a disclaimer to say, be careful what you spend and who you spend it with. And there was a nice video that I saw on YouTube that was shared by the two Property Hub guys, which was a video called The Contrapreneur by Mike Winnett. And there's probably a little bit of slander and libelous information in there, but I'd say it's quite valuable if you're about to go on a course and pay maybe 25 quid for a bit of training and then get upsold, then I would say watch that video before you do. And then also, if you do the training, just leave your credit cards at home and make sure that you're not upsold so that you've got a big mortgage at the end of it. So yeah, after that, the decision time was, should we get rid of those properties? And we decided actually to accelerate our investment plans and do a little bit more and try and become a little bit professional. So set up a shell company, nothing more than a front to our business to acquire the properties within. And then between 2017 and 2019, we made 9 further purchases, and again made a few mistakes, but still carried on. And I would say that we don't regret any of those investments. Here's a couple of them, just in terms of the easy ones to start with. There were no real effort. We didn't have to do any big refurb. It was just investments for yield in one area and then capital growth in another. Again, 2 different countries, two different parts of the country. But we don't mind driving, so I guess there's a good reason why we invest in different areas. But yeah, those were, I guess, easy purchases, and have been extremely profitable, and I would say no hands-on whatsoever in terms of the time investment that we've needed. And then 18 months ago, we got a bit more ambitious. We did do a little bit of training, and then off the back of that, we acquired a commercial property and then converted that office into 4 self-contained flats. And then, there are some benefits to that. It's some kind of walkthrough of the journey from the office through to the self-contained flats. But yeah, the benefits were no planning or permitted development, as Chris mentioned, in terms of commercial conversions on B1, B1A offices to residential. Low or no stamp duty. And again, I think we saved about £9,000 in stamp duty alone when we purchased the freehold. And again, we are the freeholder, so we can decide to service accommodate this tomorrow without permission from anybody, or convert it into something different, and obviously manage that. And there's obviously no cost for management and maintenance for something like that. So the property is a multi-unit block with 4 individual flats. And I guess, was it a success? Though there's still a big learning curve. Again, a lot of the mistakes when we finished, the valuer just downvalued it due to the comparables, decided that it was pretty much what we paid for in terms of the cost of the property plus the development and a few of our expenses, and that was the valuation. So that was a massive disappointment. We left about 45k in the deal due to that and unforeseen work. And so you might say, yeah, again, massive issues there. Was it a bad deal? Well, it's an investment of 45,000. We still managed to refinance, and it gives us £1,000 net per month under a standard AST. So it's was painful to go through, and you might say it's not the best deal in the world, but for a £45,000 investment, we're quite happy with that. And again, a better return on our money than a pension investment. So I think again that was a bit more ambitious for both of us, big learning curve, but it's something that we feel comfortable in doing again.
Andy, just a quick question on that. Do you think, what's your plan there? Would you sort of try and get it revalued maybe in a couple of years' time and get it to the level that you think it's worth?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a few conditions that were happening. It was kind of next to a pub and next to some other commercial buildings. And since then, the pub's been demolished and they've put a block of flats there. And people say, oh, that must be a problem. Actually, no, it's not, because people are looking for flats to rent and then they come and knock on our door because we're next door. So actually the appeal's there. And it's now more, the initial valuer stated that it wasn't very residential, the area, but already the area has changed massively since we purchased it, and it's become much more residential. And I would say that the commercial flats, or the flats that have been converted and been built fresh build are ones that would then at least give everybody the idea that that it's not a commercial area anymore. So I would say, yeah, we fixed it for, I can't remember, was it a 2 or 5 year, but it was for whatever period it was fixed for. We're kind of dying to get out of the fixed period and look at what the values might be. And, you know, with a bit of capital growth and showing the track record of the rental should give everybody kind of at least a bit more to compare with. So we had estate agents go in and value it about £100,000 more than what the valuer did, but nobody listens to an estate agent when it comes to valuation. So, yeah, we're hoping that'll come good in the long run.
So as a link into what Sam was saying, it'd be interesting if the surveyor had actually, you know, would have valued having a lending pack put together, because.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, so we kind of prepared it, but I think we might have caught him on the wrong day, or we were maybe being a bit pushy. But I pushed something under his nose and he pushed it aside as if he already knew exactly what was valued before he walked. But we could have also, at that point, we've done this before, we could have said, actually, we want to get another valuer in, a second opinion, or even go to a different bank, which we've done on other properties. But we were kind of accepting that it was ready to rent. There were people in. We knew that we would eventually get the money back round again, and you know the loan to value in theory hopefully will be 60 or 50% loan to value when we come back round again. So yeah, I think that, you know, we weren't too disappointed. We weren't looking for a all our money out deal anyway. So I think, you know, we just accepted it and moved on quickly rather than spending maybe another £1,000 in legals and costs and conveyancing just to get a new valuer in.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. As you say, you still got a 1K a month net profit anyway.
What also happened? Yeah, what happened was the valuer said that all flats would only raise £400 rental income, but they're actually all over 500, and we had ASTs to prove it, but he never wanted to look at them. We had a whole pack prepared, and he didn't want to know.
But I think Sam's right. In other instances, they've been very welcoming and receptive. So I think it just depends sometimes who it is and what day it is.
Yeah.
Andy, you said that you had 45,000 on the deal and you get £12,000 a year. It's 26% return on investment. I think it's fantastic. If it's valued at £2.50 or 10 million, you're not selling. You're getting to 26% return on investment. I will be so pleased.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I mean, I think the thing really is we're not in it at the moment for flipping properties. We're in it for long-term investment with the income. So our strategy has been get the income and not worry about the end value. Obviously, to pull money out and reinvest in another property, that's what we're all attempting to do. But I think to get that type of cash flow is a big part of our strategy. And then, I think just again, some other projects, just look conscious of time, but this is one that we've literally we'll talk about the kind of COVID period because we've just come out of this in terms of a project, but this was a buy, refurb, refinance project in Greater Manchester. That initially it was a house purchased under probate. It was unmortgageable due to structural issues, and they were looking for offers over £100,000, and that was on the market about 18 months ago. And we basically spent a good 3 months negotiating back and forth with these around that £100,000 mark. So anyway, I'll show you the numbers later, but just a refurb throughout with back to brick. We also, under permitted development, did an extension to increase the size of the back plate of the kitchen, which is again under permitted development. So very, very little from a planning perspective. But yeah, we actually, we were patient and we waited 3 months, and it took about 4 goes to get the property at 75,000. So that even though it says offers over 100 on Rightmove, we just kept plugging away and saying the offer still stands. Every 6 weeks the offer still stands, and it took a few months. And then we got a full refurb project managed pretty much because we were remote. We didn't do a great deal. We viewed it once a month and got a revaluation. And we got again, I'll come into more detail later, but we got a desktop valuation, which took us about 2 months writing a business plan, putting all the receipts, scanning everything, 11 documents of every nook and cranny to get that desktop valuation. But yeah, eventually, literally last week, that refinance was approved, and we're kind of just going through that now to get the money. But again, we left. That is probably one of the successes. There's a bunch of projects that I know we've never got anywhere near that, but I would say that's almost a no money out project, which again, from a kind of finance perspective, again, we're keeping the property, but it means that we can go again from a finance perspective and start to invest further. But the time frame took longer than expected, and I think our upfront initial investigation on builders, we took about 3 goes around investigating builders in the area, got let down a few times. So the project didn't really start till January, but in January the guy was up and running and completed the build in March. Literally the building he was doing the gardens one day before lockdown, but we were very worried that we didn't have any certificates or building control to come in and approve it. So we just thought that would be mothballed until the end of lockdown. But we did a lot of pushing on with the building control and worked hard to make sure that we did the distancing correctly, and all the services came in, assessed, passed the building control, gave us our certificates, and then that allowed us to get that desktop remortgage valuation. So without the building control certificate, we would have been stumped really. And then also, because we've got an arrangement with the council, they look at all our properties in Salford and in that area. We've got a few other properties that we have with other partners, and we've got a good relationship with them. They literally, we gave them the keys and they signed it up. And literally this week we've had a rental secure, and we've got somebody, key worker, going in lockdown, and he's going in there within the week. So again, while lockdown's been on, we've managed to, luckily, and lots of kind of will and effort and phone calls and scanning and email scanning, we've managed to get that property finished and out the other side. So yeah, that was kind of just a couple of examples. And I guess, how is COVID-19 affecting us while on lockdown? Well, you've seen a couple of examples there. But again, we have 2 mortgage applications ongoing, which were the days before lockdown. One of the mortgages has been delayed due to land registry. They're really slow, but we've managed to expedite that by putting in a case for basically saying that we might lose out on an investment that we've got actually invested in already. Put a case together with some numbers in, and the land registry have accelerated that. And there's a stage that you can go through, which is, I think, they're averaging 3 to 6 months on land registry changes, but you can get to the top of the list if you've got valid financial reasons, and we managed to do that. Obviously, we talked about the valuation for one remortgage. We do have 1 flat vacant at the moment, and we've started to advertise it on Spare Room. We've had people of interest. We've been doing the distancing. We provided gloves and masks, and all tenants have been going through the but we haven't had that successfully filled yet. But we have had interest. But feels like the agents and Rightmove and Zoopla is dead. But then the other peripheral applications where people still need to move into are operating, and there are key workers out there that need places to live. So that's something that there is activity going. So we do think we'll get that filled in the next week or 2. We did have 2 offers accepted on 2 HMOs before lockdown, and we have had, during lockdown, our finance approved in principle. We've kind of slowed it down because one of the lenders is, one of the properties is a bridge to let, and we have to complete the work within 6 months. And we want to make sure that we get our estimates and quotes in place, and all our costs and the builders are ready to go before we press that 6-month button. But we've been positive reception from the builders and agents to try and estimate the work. So we've got 4 quotes out of that bridge to let project, and really it's just a matter of us saying yes and being happy that we're going to move forward. then we can really complete and exchange and complete on those 2 projects. So those are kind of 2 projects that we see happening, and hopefully we'll start before lockdown. And then the refurb complete we talked about before. So a little bit of that. Just really skipped through some other projects again that were recently completed in 2020. St Albans 2-bed apartment, kind of some before and afters. Again, that's you get a capital growth solution really for us. It's not it's not a yielding project. It's definitely, with it being local in this local area, it's something that we might end up moving into ourselves with our long-term strategy. So again, just a project there we've invested a bit more time and money into to make it look better. But again, just general spec of the properties that we're putting together at the moment, in terms of what's out there in the market and what we're doing.
So just a quick question there, Andy. I mean, that flat looks lovely and is really high spec. So probably a higher spec than some of the previous projects you mentioned. Yeah,
again, we've kind of, because it's local, we're thinking we might end up retiring to it one day. So we said let's make sure there isn't going to be any problems in 2 to 5 years' time. We've probably overspent on that, using some of the funds that we've pulled out of other projects. But again, we could, because of the spec, it could go down really well as an SA. And the area, as you know, Chris, that's kind of your area. We could look at alternatives. But there's a lot more choice because the spec's quite high. Gives us the ability to move into it, or the ability to rent it out at a much higher value.
Yeah, it looks great.
It does look good, and you've got flexible options there.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think really just, again, it's kind of almost it really, the future for us. We're looking for more yield projects now, more advanced strategies like commercial, HMO, MUB. I'm actually looking at getting out of my day job in the next 12 months. We had planned to do that this year, but I think, if anything, Corona has slowed that down, but it's given us some scope to still continue in terms of acquisition. So it feels like it's given us a bit more breathing space to finish off the projects and get our cash flow in a better shape. I think there's a lot of people, I'm kind of replicating what a lot of people I've spoke to in the beach house after a couple of pints with you, Chris, are looking at doing, which is become kind of location independent, be able to manage their property from anywhere. And then, in 2021, plan to spend a few months a year traveling. And again, be able to run our property business remotely. Like you, I'm a technology guy, come from the technology background, so try to systemize and automate a lot of what we do. And then, grow our portfolio at a rate of 2 to 3 per year, maybe slow that down within 5 years. And then, we live in St Albans, so we could rent our main property out and move into one of our kind of rentals, which is something that we've got some options to do. So, it's kind of our thinking around, while all this is going on, it's given us a lot of the long walks around Hartwood Forest are giving us a longer and look at what to do next.
Oh, great.
That's it really.
Sorry, this is Oriana. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can all great. Thank you. I'm very new to this, so I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm glad you can hear me. I've unmuted myself. Anyway, thank you ever so much, Ingrid and Andy. It was really interesting, and congratulations, because I think you've done really well. What I wanted to ask you was, are all your properties managed?
Yes.
Or do you manage them?
Yeah, we've kind of took the decision to acquire more and manage less, and I think that might change. We're going to get to the point where the cost to manage it might be the cost to recruit someone, and at that point then we might recruit an individual to manage it as a full-time manager, and then that gives us some more scope to use that person to do other things. But I think until we get to that point, we just Ingrid's very good at screwing down the letting agents to low percentages and promising the world and ease. Negotiate hard on the fees, and actually it's been...
Some are only 6% plus VAT, fully managed.
So it works. So at the moment...
And you're finding them, you're happy with them? Or have you had...
Still on their case.
you gotta manage them. But yeah, if you want to put that distance between you and the tenant, then having somebody there. But yeah, you need to check every quote. Make sure if they say we're sending a plumber in, you approve it. You make sure that they're not trying to add 20% onto everything that they do. And I think so. You do need to micromanage them a little bit, otherwise they will take advantage.
Yeah. Oh, thank you ever so much. It was very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, that's good. Thanks for the question, Ori. Any other questions? So, what just quick sort of point from me, really, Andy, was I think it's just a very real story. It's a very real journey that you've been on that I think most people can relate to, because like many of us, you sort of start along this journey and you stumble a few times and you sort of learn as you go along, and you do make mistakes, but the thing is to be resilient. And property is like a bad haircut, that given time, it's kind, and the problem sort of disappears, but you do need a bit of time. So if you can afford the time, then I think even if you do make mistakes, you can get out of them. And I think you've proved that. And as Ori said, I think you've been really successful. It looks like you've got some super properties and a great portfolio. So that's really good, Andy. That's really good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
So,
and Ingrid, obviously.
Yeah, thank you both. Yeah, that's good. We've got a couple of minutes. I wondered, Julie, did you want to cover any legislation changes, and rather than do it after the 8 o'clock sort of clap? Would you like to do that now?
It's not fair on Julie to rush it.
Okay.
I've got a quick question for Andy.
Oh yeah, no, do that then, Lewis. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Just a real quick question, Andy. You guys have done fantastic, and you've tried quite a few different strategies. Have you got one in particular that is your favourite as such?
I would say that if we could keep it standard, I call it standard vanilla buy-to-lets, because they are the least hands-on that you need to be, and it's simple, and everyone should start there. I think everyone should start there. The commercial stuff, was exciting, but we could have gone broke. It could have, made us bankrupt. It didn't. We worked hard, got a bit of luck, but I'd say, so the basic stuff, do the basics easy, as kind of, if you've got the time and the patience and I'd say that maybe some of the deposit money to do that, it's less risk. And even though we are going into HMOs and commercials, if I had £1 million, or if I had 250 grand, I'd probably just get as many standard 6-month AST 2-bedroom houses or 2-bedroom flats as I could before I decided to move into something more complicated.
That's interesting.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, that's a good question, Lewis. A really good question, actually. Yeah, really good question. Okay, that brings us nicely, actually, to just about 8 o'clock. So we will take a 5-minute break just to show our appreciation to the NHS and other carers.
Lewis is being called.
And so I'll just go on mute. And so we'll be back at 8:05. We'll let Julie have her bit and then go on to Max. All right, thanks, everyone.